A great thing for us to just be able to talk about health for a second. And so it's amazing how God works, because Dan did the part of the speech that I couldn't. I actually have a 3-hour speech that teaches about this. What we're going to do is teach about the truth about heart disease and cholesterol. Thank you. And so if you can just, and I'm just going to signal to Bryce every once in a while to press the space bar for me. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just talk about how do Americans approach prevention. Is this it? Is this what most of us do? Do we do the ostrich and that head in the sand here? Is this how we approach our health and our well-being? It is what a lot of Americans do. Is it true? Have you ever done that about some aspect of your health? I think most of us have. It gets scary when we start looking at some of these statistics. Let's look at the statistics. So if we take a look at the statistics here, if we all turn our heads to the right and look at the person to your right, and we all turn our heads to the left and look at the person to the left, if there is someone there, 1 in 2 Americans die of heart disease. Now that is scary stats, okay? And it becomes even more real when you go through something like Dan did, right? So Dan and his friend and had an issue that's going on there. So what can we do about this? Let's look at a little more stats. When we're looking over here, if you look all the way to the left, that's 1900. You come over here, this is 2000, 2004. Can you see any particular thing that's going on with the rates of people dying from heart disease in America? What's happening, guys?
It's going way up.
It's going way up, yes? Okay, so now what the news is reporting is, okay, well, heart disease is a little less lately. Okay, so yeah, this is a little dip that's going down here. Well, let's go back to 1900 and say, what are we doing that's so different, so dramatic, that we're looking at deaths in the thousands on the left, and we're looking at the years as we go back in 100 years, and there's some amazing, amazing amount of changes. So what else can we look at? Let's look at the prevalence of high blood pressure. Dan was kind enough to explain how that's an important thing to take a look at for our health and well-being, yes? And what we see here is high blood pressure in men and women. So women, I want you to understand, it is not only a man's disease. We're taking a look at these stats. When we take a look here, we can see, and something else is very interesting. From 20 to 75, why is it that our blood pressure is continually going up and up and up? Is there something going on? Somebody said something, I heard.
Less oxygen.
Less oxygen, okay, less exercise. Somebody say something else?
Stress.
Stress. Yes, stress. So we stress ourselves out, and we put toxins in our body, and we do the opposite of wellness. The 5 factors of health and wellness are exercise, rest, nutrition, mental well-being, all flowing through a healthy nervous system. When we don't do that, guess what happens? We start to have cumulative destructive values and problems moving forward. Okay, what about this? So there is this question mark. Everybody thinks about heart disease, or it's happening less and less now, but most people think about heart disease and they think men, right? That they think, oh, it's a man's disease. But let's look at these stats. Men are in the red and females are in the blue. Women, should we be paying attention? Yeah, I think we should be. Look at these stats. We're looking at the same concept here. As Dan mentioned, it's rarer when you're younger, but look, we still have 20% of the population, or 10% of the population at age 20. And then we go to age 40, we go up to 40% of the population. Age 60, we go up to 70% of the population. 70% of the population. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? At the age of from 60 to 68 years old. Okay, this is a problem, yes? Would you agree that this is a problem?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So, let's go into a couple of heart statistics. 33% of people will die from heart disease as the first symptom. A heart attack is the first symptom. So as Dan was explaining to us, that prevention is much more important. What was the saying? Everybody repeat his saying. An ounce of prevention is a pound worth of pound of cure. You've heard your parents, you've heard your grandparents say this statement, right? And it's a very powerful title, and it's a very potent thing to think about. It's estimated that about 47% of cardiac deaths occur before emergency services are transported to the hospital. So Dan also said how important it is, if something's starting to happen, you move quickly, right? So you don't ignore these things that are happening. If you start seeing something that's coming up, you do something about it. Because if you wait to the last moment, it might be your last moment. Get it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about cholesterol. Okay, cholesterol is so misunderstood. I do a 2-hour talk to teach this. I'm going to do it in 1 minute. Okay, so how do I condense 2 hours to 1 minute? Okay, so the truth about cholesterol, first of all, there's 2 lines here. You see the green? You see the yellow? Okay, now on the left-hand side, we're taking a look at the percent of the population. On the right-hand side, whenever you're looking at graphs, always look at the left and the right. And the bottom, you're looking at blood cholesterol levels. So there is something that's strikingly similar here. The cholesterol percent of the population at these cholesterol levels with heart disease and without heart disease is pretty darn close, right? I mean, there's a little bit of difference in those 2 graphs, but maybe it's not just cholesterol, guys. Do you think that it's possible there might be something else with heart disease than cholesterol? It is a factor, but do you think there's possibly something else going on? Next slide, please. Okay, let's move into the Framingham study. The first thing to look at, and this is a complicated concept, but I'm just going to tell you, let's look at this. For every 1 milligram per year drop in cholesterol levels during the first 14 years of the study, this is the longest running study, it's still ongoing, okay, where they're checking thousands and thousands of people in Framingham, Massachusetts. Every 1 milliliter drop in cholesterol levels, there was a 14%, everybody read that word with me, increase in cardiovascular death and 11% increase in overall mortality. That seems completely opposite of what you learned, isn't it? Now, I don't have the time to go into all of the reasons why, but I want you to understand that it's not just about cholesterol. Next. So, what am I trying to teach you? I'm telling you that saturated fat may be healthy for you. Okay, so the next thing, they mistakenly reported, what did they actually report when this happened, when this research came out? They mistakenly reported that 1% reduction in cholesterol corresponds to a 2% reduction in coronary heart death risk. Coronary heart disease risk. Does that sound like the same information to you? It certainly did to me, and when I found this out, I was flabbergasted. Next. Okay, next slide. So it's shown declining cholesterol does not increase your longevity, and it increases your risk of death from all causes, including cardiovascular